Yeah, I have a question. It's not well formed, so I hope it's gonna come out. But this year has been very, very turbulent in terms of the inner process, emotional, energetic, very wild and hard to understand, and it was just very hard to experience. And I had a lot of help also from um, that's yeah, like a therapist who also has a gift for perceiving energies, and and she helped on that level, and it was just profound every time she could help at a distance. And I cannot explain it, but it was very, very, very noticeable. Like I cannot deny that a lot happened.
Mm-hmm.
And and she mentions also like other non-physical things or beings or helpers. And because my experience was just so vivid inwardly, I cannot deny everything that happened. And almost like miracles, I felt just intense weight lifted off me every time. And it seems now like I almost shifted the idea of authorship to this subtle level of, oh, that's where she was able to do everything, or that's uh, where the authorship happens. And do you know what I mean?
No,
Oh,
I was following you right up to the point uh, where the authorship was connected to this.
yeah. It is when it comes to just normal, mundane, physical life, there it seems to be a bit more transparent to me in the sense that everything happens, it is steered by something deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to this subtle energetic level, that's where I attribute authorship and doership somehow. That's where
Well,
things,
I think that is the key word you attribute
yeah,
authorship.
yeah,
So that is your attribution. And now the teaching steps in and says, let's look at this attribution. Let's look at this quote claim that the other is authoring something.
yeah.
And we apply the same kind of curiosity in looking at that and say, what would be the source of this power that the other is exerting to shift energies and things? Are they the source of it? Are they God? Are they the the author of that? Or are they in the instrument through which something has happened
Mhm.
and energy shifts, and that you, when you are in connection with that person, that flows between you? That's the question that the teaching raises.
Mm. Yeah, I guess the attribution of authorship is harder to discard there because it's less visible, so it lives more in my imagination, I guess. Or
Mm-hmm.
but the looking direction, like your pointer, still holds. Yeah. I think I just wanted to say it out loud because every time I say something out loud to you, it's kind of out in the open and out of my private little box.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Do you never talk about those subtle layers, energetic, like the shamanistic part of life? Do you believe in that, or is it true for you, or?
Well, that's like asking, do you believe in God? First, you must define very precisely what you mean by that. So, do I believe in energy? Yes, of course. The whole universe is energy.
Yeah.
Do I believe in shamans? Now the question is, what do you mean by a shaman? Is it the shaman someone with special powers that they control, or is the shaman someone through which certain energies flow? That's so people have very different definitions of what shamanism or shamans are.
Hmm.
And for me, it always comes back to the question of what is the source? And so, yes, the manifestation that we live in, that we are part of, is infinite and varied, and has all kinds of uh, different levels and qualities and characteristics. Some of them very mainstream and familiar, others very esoteric. And so all of that I believe to be part of what is manifest.
Hmm.
This teaching is concerned with that which is the source and the substance of what is manifest.
Hmm.
So we're actually going a step deeper, if you like, or broader, to look at the manifestation and all of the things that you experience and and feel and see, and to see if there is a recognition what is the broader context for all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and when people have a certain skill or an amazing skill that is very consistent almost, maybe not always, but there is maybe like sports, an athlete he can almost always perform a certain way, or
Mhm.
any
Mhm.
skill, then it really starts to look like authorship, right?
Well, you can authorship can be attributed to that
Yeah.
quite readily.
Yeah.
And the more consistent it is, the more uh, that claim of authorship can be uh, asserted or averred. He says, they can do it, they can repeat it over and over and over again. But if it was truly they were the author, they would repeat it always, 100%, that there would never be a circumstance in which they did not, because they had absolute control.
Mm.
If they don't have absolute control, if they're only 99.9% effective, then you never know in the moment what will happen next, whether it's the 99.9 or the 0.1,
Mhm.
because they are not controlling that. The universe, quote, is
Yeah.
responsible.
Yeah. And sometimes you do use the word control to indicate the ability to do something, like the control is given.
Yeah,
And the control can be then given rather consistently.
of course, yeah.
And it seems like we get there by practicing.
Sometimes, yes. I mean, that is one of the paths to that. So, and the so practicing is often part of it, but where we tend to get a little confused often is when we attribute the practicing as being the cause of it.
Yeah.
Well, the reason that they have that skill level is because they practice. Well, but the practice is only, in fact, one aspect.
Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of elements have to still come together in order to be able to practice or to.
Yeah. And some people, I can practice being a jockey for 100 years, and I'm still probably not going to be a successful jockey
Mhm.
at
And
over 100 at over 100 kilos.
right. And you're probably not gonna be given the power to practice that for 100 years, maybe.
Very likely.
Mm, yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome. Yes, Mary.
Hi, Wayne. I've been sitting here the whole time, really, really wanting to talk to you and not knowing how to formulate what it is. And anyway, I want to thank Barbara because I just identified with so much of what she said, and that sometimes just being able to talk to you helps things move along. But so there's a really lot going on, a lot going on in my life right now. And, part of it is going through a lot of intense emotions and going on that have been triggered having to do with my childhood. And then there's just a lot of real life things going on. And I find somehow all of that and the way I'm reacting to it, the the inability that I have to control anything is just becoming more and more apparent. I mean, well, it's not a cause and effect thing. It's also just something that's developing where I see more and more of the time through the FSA or whatever you want to call it. And that idea of me, that like conceptual idea of me who orders things and is just getting so eroded. And so it's like I'm experiencing things in a very different way. Just this emotion will come, that emotion will come, this thing will happen, that thing will happen. It all seems like, in a way, it's kind of fun and exhilarating, but in another way, it's like, oh my God, what's going on? Because it'll be like all this is happening, and I'm not overseeing it all. I'm not I'm not making sure things are going in the direction I want them to, or that a lot of my controlling a lot is falling away. And yet there's this, like, it's like being on a roller coaster ride or something. And then there's fear. Well, it's not unusual for me to have fear come up, but there's something different. It'll just be this, like, this just pure unmitigated fear. And a lot of the time it's focusing on the fear of death. But it can focus on a lot of things. Especially I have a condition that is not, I'm not terminal, it's not imminently life-threatening, but it's something that down the line could eventually develop. I mean, it's just something that has to be watched, and I have never needed any treatment, but at some point, so that, knowing, I don't know, so I don't have control of that. I'm getting older. A lot of my friends are dying, getting sick, going through surgeries, and I don't know why I'm laughing. It's just, well, I guess it's just coincidence that at this time in my life, this is happening in my deepening of the understanding. But see, my mind is always trying to like put it together and have a coherent understanding of the whole thing.
That's what minds do, Mary.
I know. Well, and then I'm always making myself wrong for doing that. And then I think, oh well, I'm not doing it. I don't have control. It's just, it's all like spinning around more quickly, if that makes any sense. Um, you're just like an ocean of refuge. All these funny things keep coming in my mind. I laugh, I laugh at a lot. Sometimes people are telling me terrible, tragic things, and I have to keep myself from laughing. And now I would just love to banter on with you forever, but uh, again and again and again, you come to the rescue. And I don't mean when we're talking here, I mean, when I went through this little couple days where I was convinced I was going to die soon, and all I could think was, I can't die before I get to see Wayne again. I hope I manage to somehow get down there and see you. Even though I know that the distance isn't a separation, there's just something about seeing you and being with you that I would just I want to experience again. I was so lucky back in the early days. I'm so lucky. I'm so fortunate to have you. Oh my God. Oh. This incredible life, the amazing energy of it, and the surprising things that happen, and the love.
Yes, James.
Hi, Wayne. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Um, Curious about this. Well, first of all, I just want to thank Mary and Barbara. Your interactions today really touched me and meant a lot. So thank you both. And I want to go back to this idea of consistency, um, because I guess I find myself at times painfully aware of the fact that any skill or capacity that I seem to have could be gone in the next moment. Or conversely, that new skills and capacities that I had no idea could come in. So I don't know what the next moment's going to bring, which as I'm speaking it, it feels actually quite freeing when I put it that way. In general, I felt quite um, it's been more of a fear. It's like, how does one live if I don't know if tomorrow I'm going to be able to do the same things that I can do today, sometimes to make a living? You know, maybe tomorrow the things that I do to make a living are not going to be possible. And then what do I do? Which is, you know, sometimes hard to sit with. And then when I expand that out and I look at the world and I see that there are certain people, you know, the example of athletes was used earlier. There are certain people who go through their lives and can basically, um, you know, do something at a very high level consistently for a long, long time and never question um, the possibility that it's not their author doing. It's just I just do this so well and I do it consistently so well. That's just their reality. And then also there are people who can't seem to really do much at all consistently. And their lives, looking at it one way, their lives are kind of screwed up. um, you know, you could say anyway. And that to me, that also, you know, brings in this idea of compassion that I've heard you reference before about how when you really feel into the fact that um, no manifest being has ultimate authored power over anything, that you know, when you see someone's life going horribly awry, compassion arises, but not sort of like a sense of pity, maybe like, oh, you should pull yourself up by your bootstraps and try harder, you're not doing it well enough. But it's like, oh, I'm so sorry that you're having a hard time, that life is not going well for you. um, yeah, I'm not sure if there's a question in all that. I'm not sure if you hear anything in all of that that sparks anything, but
Well, I mean, you touched on a lot of things that, you know, we talk about in the teaching, and how fear is this manifestation of in which uncertainty is characterized negatively. So I don't know. So there's insecurity. There's the illusion of security that we have in a story we tell about the future, based upon, and this is where it gets very interesting, based upon observable patterns. There are observable repeating patterns in the universe.
yeah.
And we take these observable repeating patterns as, quote, truths, as absolutes. And that's where things get funky, because they are not truths. Everything is subject to change, including long-held observable patterns. But functionally, we as creatures, part of our functioning capacity is to observe patterns. We are pattern recognition creatures. And this is what enables us, in large measure, to, quote, advance technologically, to make and construct things, because we are able to take these patterns and utilize them. Where, once again, where it all gets really iffy and kind of funky is when those patterns are mistaken for truths, for absolutes, rather than recognized as being very useful functional patterns. I use, of course, you've heard me use many times the example of the light switch, where we observe the pattern that when one flips the light switch, the light goes on. And we teach, in order for our children to function in the universe, by saying, if you want the light to go on, flip the switch. That is, and essentially, it is this recognition of the pattern that when the switch is flipped, the light usually goes on.
Right.
But it doesn't always go on. And if we mistake the pattern as a cause, we're screwed. As a singular cause. Because then when the light doesn't go on, all you can do is continue to flip the switch. There's nothing else. When we recognize that it is a part, this turning on the light is part of a bigger pattern, part of a bigger system, then the possibility of, problem solving, of doing something different becomes viable.
Yeah.
So if I were to, characterize, this teaching, I would say it is simply to expand one's awareness beyond the limitations of singular cause and effect, to recognize that what is happening, what takes place, is part of a vastly bigger occurrence, far more complex, far more interrelated than the limited knowledge that we possess. So Belinda says, so what society calls science and facts then are not really truth. They are just truths for now. Well, this is I mean, when you look at the history of science, that is what scientific progression is all about. That, you know, quantum physics replaced Newtonian physics. That what was formerly a truth about how the world worked ceased to be a viable description of the pattern. That now a more complex and different description of the pattern came into being. But though for those who were totally invested in, quote, the truth of Newtonian physics, then the, quote, the new physics, the quantum physics, was heresy.
Thank you, Wayne.
You're
Appreciate
very
it.
welcome.